Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am the Kentucky Yankee. If you've been following my channel, you know that this engine right here is out of a front wheel drive car and we're putting it into a rear wheel drive truck, i.e. a Ford Ranger. And here's the transmission over here. And I wanted to talk to you guys about this because when you put a front wheel drive engine in a rear wheel drive vehicle, you're going to run into problems. And the first problem is, here's the front of the engine, here's the intake, and here's where the throttle body is. So that needs to be in the front of the engine, of course, on a rear wheel drive. So this intake's useless to us. The reason I saved all this wiring is because I'm going to use a standalone engine management system. In other words, it replaces the engine computer or brain, whatever any of you people want to call it. Keep the wiring harness all the way to the pigtails. Then you can cut it right here at the pigtails and put your connectors on the end of these wires and plug it into your new engine management system, and you don't have a bunch of hacked up wires and splicing and making them longer and all that. Just keep it to the end, cut it off, do it that way. It's a lot cleaner job. So a couple other pieces I saved. I think that the exhaust manifold's going to work on my truck to get it started and going. So I saved this pipe, and even if we have to cut it and turn it, whatever, it'll work. Also, I want to keep this drive-by wire. So here is the gas pedal. For those of you that don't know what drive-by wire is, it's just simply, instead of having a throttle cable, this is like a resistor in here, and it'll send a signal to the throttle body, and the throttle body will open and close. It's just electrical wires instead of just a cable. And I just like that better and want to hook that back up. I saved this cool grommet that goes through the firewall. I don't know. Might use it, probably not. Save this battery box just because it's plastic and the ones on Rangers are metal and they rust. I don't know, may use that, maybe not. So there's just a little bit of information, for you that this is the process I'm going through, and as I find these things out, I'm sharing it with you guys. But for now, today, I need to get this head off because I made a bid on one for eBay, but I want to see how bad, if the cylinders are in bad shape or whatever. I know the head's cracked, and I have a previous video on that. If you're interested in watching that, I'll put it in the link in the description below. But I do know the head's cracked, so we have to get it off of there. I'll show you the crack in it when I get it off. And see how bad the engine, what kind of shape the cylinders are in. If they look good, I'm going to go ahead and order that head. If they don't, we might need to do something else. Don't be intimidated by wiring harnesses, guys. Just rip them off there and throw them on the bench. Nowadays, the way they're made, the conduit is wrapped real tight, and the wires kind of form where they want to go on the engine. So when we need to put this back on, I'll just throw it back up there, and it'll kind of fall in place where it needs to go. No big deal. If there's anybody out there who is very new at this is the exhaust manifold, and that was a heat shield we took off of it. This is an oxygen sensor. Technically speaking, you're supposed to take the bolts out or the nuts off from the outside and work your way in. The outside here, and then work your way in so you don't warp it. enhance your viewing pleasure, I have turned this engine stand around to provide better lighting while we remove this, which is the intake manifold. And this is turning out to be quite the tutorial today. This right here is called the fuel rail. So now ignition coils right here and this valve cover. Ignition coil, the spark plug, you know, this boot goes over the spark plug right there. Oh, full of water. So I told you I'd show you where the crack is. It's right there. Let me let it focus. It's right, sorry guys. See this right here? That's a crack and it runs down that side into the valve. Very important, don't lose that right there, that little shim. That's why you always pry just gingerly. Don't get rough and aggressive with it, just easy, you know, easy pry on it if you feel something like this obvious bolt I missed. So now the timing chain, and no big deal. We'll take this tensioner off and this other guide. This guide also will come off. Now, before we can access the head bolts, we need to take these camshafts out. These are alignment dowel pins, and you need them. Don't throw them out with a head gasket or something like that. Don't lose them. You need those. So there's two of them, one on each side here. I'm going to take those off and get this head gasket off, and we will explore this engine. So first thing I noticed right off was this valve right here is sticking out. So it's bent or rusted and frozen in place or something. So I need to really look at this cylinder where this valve was and make sure it didn't hit the piston. And that would be this spot right here. And it is a little bit shiny. But let's crank this engine over and see what the inside of the cylinders look like. Well, this is the number 4 cylinder, and it's got a little bit of, very little bit of rust on there that's been wore off. And this is number 1, and it really looks good. Let me crank it over and we'll look at the other two. All right, there's the other 2 cylinders. Well, now I'm left with some difficult decisions to make. This cylinder, this number 4, is rusted pretty good, so it'd probably take about 30 thousandths to clean it up. You know, they'd have to bore it that much. And if we do that, we're talking about just rebuilding the whole engine, because if you're going to go through that trouble, you might as well redo the whole thing. I don't know if I want to take that route. I might just buy another used engine, but one that's good. I knew that this one had sat out in the weather. I got the whole car really cheap, so I got a lot of parts. I'm not upset about it. But I have hard decisions to make, guys. Listen, thanks for watching. It was still fun tearing this piece of crap apart, and we will see you next time.